Hi guys, Peter Tommasini from Classic Car Restoration again, and today what we're going to show you a few tricks, a few ways, what wheel to use, what anvil to use, how to hold the panel, and on wheeling. There's going to be a bit of a wheeling lesson. So what I decided to do is to use the bottom pan of this car, because there's a couple of things you need to know and you need to see how it's done in order not to get it either too full or the right shape. It has also got to run into the next panel here. So it's not just a matter of cutting a pattern and just start wheeling like there's no tomorrow. You've got to take care, because as you can see, it needs to run in through here, and I'll show you after on the board what I mean. But before we do that, I want to put this panel in, and I also got two samples that are left halfway through and full of waves that I can show you how to fix them. So we start off with putting this panel into the bottom of the buck, and then I'll get the cameraman to have a look at the flow and also the joint, because they must be perfect. So in a minute, I'm going to put it on, we're going to change the position of the camera, and we check the joint and the flow. As you can see, it's flowing beautifully on the joint, right here. And now the camera will come up a little bit with the camera, and you can actually see the flow through here. Okay. Now this is the buck side. Obviously we haven't made the cap, let's call it a cap, but you can see again that everything flows beautifully and it will give you a beautiful weld. I'm going to explain on the board what's going to happen if you don't do this. Let me show you on the board what I've tried to explain on the job. So here I've got the same profile of the bottom panel. This is the profile there. And as you can see, we need to line up, put a weld, and lined up with the top panel. So this here is the side panel, or the cap as I mentioned, and this here is the bottom panel, and that's where the weld is. So what you want to do is work out in such a way that when you put the weld in, and I'm going to mark this in red, you don't end up with a surface that looks like so. Okay? Because then you'd have to do a lot of work, and it's not, well, it can work, but it takes a long, long time, and it's a lot of extra work. Another thing you don't want, and I'm going to take that off so it doesn't get confusing. That's right. Another thing you don't want is this to look like so. That's exaggerated. I'll exaggerate it so you can see what I mean. Because what's going to happen is, if you weld it in that position, there's the weld there, if you weld it in that position, again, this is exaggerated. So don't take too much notice, but it's a little bit on exaggeration so you can imagine what I'm talking about. Okay, so when you put the weld through here, you then have to panel bit that down, which in order will take the shape off here and off there. Because how that's come down, that way, it would reduce the shape here. Then the problem you've got a big panel then that you've got to try to work. So that's why I'm going to show you the way and the wheel to use to get that perfectly okay. Now what you got to understand also is that this panel here, at this point, around let me see, around here, it is a lot wider up the top than it's at the bottom. So I'll show you why, and I'll explain when I'm wheeling it, I'll explain what I'm talking about. So now we're going to go on a sample that I've made. I'm going to show you the difference between the sample and the one that we put in originally. Then I'm going to go on the wheel and show you how to fix that problem. Here's a sample number one. I'm going to put this sample into the car like I did on the previous one, and the cameraman will go around that underneath like he did before, and I will show you the spot that I'm talking about, and then we go on the wheel and show you how to fix it. As you can see, it's flowing pretty good through here, but have a look at this. Now, as I mentioned on the board, this is a lot wider through here than it's through there. So I'll show you a way to do that without doing extra wheeling, extra bending, because of course, if you just bend that, well, number one, it won't let you bend it because we got that panel here. In other words, we got that panel here. So you won't be able to bend it. But I'll show you on the wheel how to achieve that shape through here and close that in without shrinking if possible. You can shrink it a little bit, but then you have to have perhaps a little bit more metal, so you want to then cut the strings out. But I'll see if I can do it without shrinking that in. Again, I'll explain. You can shrink this down, but you won't fix this problem. Okay, you won't fix the fact that it's hard up against there. So you're not doing the right thing. Okay, so now I'm going to go on the wheel and show you how I'm going to fix that problem. Then we're going to put the sample back up there and show you step by step how I get that to go around there. Okay, what I did, I marked it. It was tight a little bit here, and it need to come around this way a little bit. Remember, it's obviously too straight, but what we got to be careful of is not to get it too round, because if you do, then we go back to what I said on the board. Remember, you don't want that. So I'm going to show you the best way to control that, to get this tightness up and blend our lot in so the overall flow is the same. Okay, so what we're going to do now, the first thing I'm going to do on it, I'm going to stand on it. Now don't laugh, I'm going to stand on it. Simple fact that you cannot put a full wheel through here and not getting lines. Your best bet is to open as much as possible, use a flatter wheel as possible, then close it. So in order to do that, I'm going to simply stand on the panel. Okay, you can see that I've opened that up quite, and you can see there's ripples all over the place. I'm not too worried about the ripples on this sample. I just want to show you the principle to get together around. Now don't forget also that that's going around, as you know, but that cannot go around. Okay, so this got to go around, and you've got to blend this into that, because that does not go around like that. And I'm going to stop in a minute and show you on the board the area. Okay, the area in question is this. I'll see if I can draw it. The panel, as you can see, it's going somewhere in there. Okay, this is looking from the top. I'm not a good drawer, unfortunately, but just to get an idea. Okay, so as I said to you before, this is the wide area, and that is this area here. This part here, which is then this part here, cannot go around as much as that, because otherwise you're going to end up with that. Yeah? So now that you can see this, I got on the wheel and show you how I do it. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to check what wheel I can use in here in order not to put too many lines. So I'm going to try with this. And that would do the job. Okay, so I'm going to swap the wheel over. I'm going to put the panel on the wheel. Not too much pressure. Don't use too much pressure. I don't know why people squeeze. I've seen people putting, 3, 4 turn of the wheel. You can't control it. You hollow everything out. This sort of work's got to be done a little bit at a time. You got to keep your eyes on everything. So while I'm wheeling here, they might put a hollow there or whatever. You just got to keep looking at it and feel it. Feeling is the best way. I'm just going to stop for a second because I'm going to put my gloves on for 2 reasons. I don't want to put any finger marks all over it because I can't see it. And with gloves, I can feel the job a lot better. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do, as I said to you, I'm going to try to do it without shrinking it. So what I'll do is with medium pressure, I'm just going to pull the panel down there. Now, also, I'm not going to go straight across. I'm going to come across this line. See this line here? Because that is the area where it comes around. And that tells me where to stop pulling down. Don't want this side to go down, remember? So we're going to pull down in this matter. Yeah? And as you can see, I am not using loads of pressure, but I get that edge in first. I get that down a little bit. Then I come along and blend it in. I'm going to come along and blend it in. And I come along and blend it in, just like that. Because we need a bit of pressure, we need a bit of shape in here as well, remember? So, towards the front. Don't stop at one point all the time, because you're going to end up with a mark, and then you can't blend in. Now I'm going to come through here, again. Slowly does it through here. Try not to go too further in. Blend it all in nicely. Use a flat wheel, as I said before. Make sure you don't use a too sharp a wheel. This is coming down, see I'm pulling down every time. But the idea is not to have tons of pressure. Little bit, yes, but not too much. Just to show you in a minute the pressure as well, I'm going to put the panel in and out. Okay, watch. See that? See that? That's the pressure you want to have. If you got too much pressure every time you stop, you're going to put a nasty, nasty bloody dent in it, and then it's going to be hard to get rid of. Now I'm coming around this way to just start the rounding off. And as you can see, I'm concentrating on the two black lines there, meaning these two black lines. Okay, so now I'm going to take the pressure off again and trying to smooth it off. And then I'll close it and check it. Now you can see the angle that I'm using because I got a wider wheel. And I smooth that all the way through a little bit because I might have to reopen it again. I don't know yet. Go all the way through. Make sure that there's no stop marks. A little bit of stop marks, very, if you got a little bit, it doesn't matter because you can still do that with a sharp wheel once it's closed in. But I'm going to close it all up. Now, you can see that I'm pulling and I'm wheeling, holding here, pulling down. I'm not going to the edge yet. And I'm staying between those two black lines. And of course I can feel. Anything that is wrong, I can feel. Now you might wonder, how does he know to feel, where to wheel? I can feel it. That's why you must have a nice wheel, nice and polished, clean metal, so you can see what you're actually doing. Okay, so now it's a little bit smooth. Now I'm going to bend it back. Okay, now I'm going to try to bend this back. That, of course, will straighten it. But let's see if what I've done is, even though it's going to be straight, it's good enough. Otherwise, we'll open it up again and do the same procedure again. So let me just close it where it was before. Check it. Use your fingers. Now you can see here on the blend that it's not quite right. So now what I'm going to get the wheel very lightly and bring this in a little bit. Not too much, just to blend it in. And then of course we go onto the back, put it on and see what else we need to do. So now I'm going to use a different wheel. I'm going to take this off. This wheel is slightly flatter, not much, slightly flatter. And I'm going to pull that down. I'll check it, make sure that it's the right shape. And very slowly, look, there's no pressure on that. Maybe a little bit more. There we go. Now, very slowly, just let the panel do its thing. Just pull it down there. Not too much, remember? This side here is not going in as much as the rest. Remember on the board I showed you? This side here is not going in as, nowhere near as much, not hooking over or hooking under, whatever you want to call it. And again, a little bit there, and then all the way through. Don't stop at one point. Now, one thing that you must remember, in this case, any hook in is done from about here, because if you're trying to wheel the whole panel and hook it in, both sides, you're getting too full here. You can fix that as well, and I'll show you if I get too full how to fix it, but use a little bit of pressure and just very slowly bring that down very slowly. Hold your hand there, hold it there. See, I'm hooking in a little bit there. Now I'm going to show you why on the board again, just there, and then back here, just there. Okay, just there, and then back here. But I've got no pressure, I will get no stop marks. But beyond what I'm not doing, in this case, I'm not coming all the way through and pull down. Why? Because I'm going to put shape there where I don't want it. And I'll show you on the board where the shape is. Okay, so now, before I go any further, so you can understand what I'm talking about here, I'm going to go on the board and show you this particular area here. Okay. Okay, I've been working on the top. This is the area. And at the bottom here, as I said, excuse my drawing, yet I'm not good at drawing. I'm working on this side, because this side also has got to go into there, yeah? But nowhere near as much as what's up the top there. That's where the blend is. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm going to eyeball it and have a look at it. And I can tell you it needs a bit of shape here, right here. So, back on the wheel. And just very slowly, don't yank it down. You'll be sorry. Just very slowly work it. Very slowly work it. Just slowly, slowly, slowly. When you get to here, because the wheel now starts to get a bit too flat for that area, so just come around. Here we go. Come around and blend it in. Come around and blend it in there as well. Okay? Then come back here, and as you come out on the flat, and then blend it in. Now you might say, isn't it going to get stop marks? No, you won't, because I've got no pressure. I am handling the panel rather than using pressure. I've seen a lot of guys putting an enormous amount of pressure on a panel, and guess what? They're going to destroy it. Okay, now, I'm going to eyeball it again, and I can see that that wants to come out. Wants to come out. And now we're going to go onto the buck and see what we got. Okay, let's see what we got. Okay, you can see that we're getting very close, but there's a little bit of discrepancy here, and that only means handling it. So you just open it up here and shut it back there. You can do that on the wheel or with your fingers. So that's what I'm going to do right now. There we go. Okay, now what I need to do, now I put the original panel back in. What I need to do now is to take the panel back off, do a little bit of blocking on the actually radius. Remember, even in the early stages, and I'll show you that later anyway, on a panel that we're going to make, or we start to make, by blocking a little bit through here, it will start to, the panel will start to go. Then I will be wheeling that section out so that's perfect. Anneal the panel and go over. Okay, the same principle you saw me doing at the front of the bottom panel, it goes on any joint. Now, I'll show you here. I've got a little bit of plate here holding the three panels together. And you can see that the joints are pretty good. All it needs is to tack it and weld it. Same through here. This is overlap, by the way, it's not quite cut yet. I'll eventually will cut that there and put it in. But we've got a small problem here. See what I said release? I get the camera to zoom in from the top in a minute, and I need to release a little bit of that just from here to there. Release it a little bit, maybe with Hammond dolly. You can leave it like that, but as I said, the less work you want to do once you weld it, the better. Now, as I said, the camera will go from the top, and you can see that this is a little bit too sharp. That's why we're getting the same thing. So slowly it's going to come up from the top, and you can see here that this is hooking up too hard. So by releasing a little bit, I will then be able to lift this up. It will flow in better with this panel so I can tack it. Even though we got the headlight here somewhere, within reason that's where the headlight is, I'm still going to weld it in there as if the headlight was in there, and then later on, once I've got the right headlight, I will then cut it out and go accordingly. Here we got the same thing. You can see how, put a little bit of bracket there. I found a bracket on the bench, one screw to hold it all together. You can see that that's what you must have. When you do it this way, there's a lot less work in panel beating it, because you can literally weld it, clean the flux off, release the weld a little bit, and keep your repair as small as possible. If you've got any problems with the fitting, then you have to smash it, panel beat it, stretch it, shrink it, blah, 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 and you then end up with a big repair. And you're literally working where you already have been working on. So you can see that everything's fitting within reason. I got my marks here. And then bit by bit, I'll be putting them together depending on what I'm doing. For instance, I could possibly put this and this together first, check everything, then put the bottom panel, this panel with the bottom panel already welded in, both sides, put that to that, and then eventually put that to that. So it's a matter of which way to do it, and you can work that out yourself while you're working on it. Now come around here and I'll show you another one. I'll get the cameraman to zoom in on this particular spot here. Now I could easily belt that out a little bit and weld it, but again, I don't want to do that. As you can see, I put bend. Now I can't wheel on this, because if I wheel too much, then I might get that again. So what I'll do by bending it, it helps coming around, and it'll also straighten a little bit. So I'll just bend it there a little bit. See, bend on the pipe, and then push this down. Just literally doing that. Once it's perfect, I'll tack it and weld it. Needs a little bit of a twist there, I already marked it. Down, as you can see, bend, so I get that right. Now come around here. Before I do any of that, I just marked it so you can see it. This is the way that I must wheel this. Into the flare here. There's a flare here going on. There's a return coming on here. If you look at these cars, it's a bulbous shape and there's a flare coming up and going up into the door. And maybe if I got time later, I will show you how to literally do that. Because that shape there, it drips out, it's open more than this shape here. So there's a certain way to do that as well. Keeping in mind that here, see I said no wheeling, this got to stay straight. You can't afford to have that going that way. Same reason. If you do that, then the mudguard will look like that. And you don't want that. So you do a little bit of wingly here, and might draw a little bit there, but with low pressure then, you just touch it up and keep that straight. When I say straight, reasonably straight. It's got a little bit of shape, but not much, because the wheel arch here, needs to be parallel through here. So you can imagine if I wheel too much in here, that'll come in and then it'll look horrible. So this line here, right across the wheel arch here, and I just get the camera to look at it, right across here, needs to be flowing. It also needs to be flowing through here, and of course, through there. So there's the same principle applies. You've got to open them up, wheel them, whatever, bring them down a little bit until, close them, check them until it's right. Once it's right, you then finish it off. We got the same thing here. As you can see, there's a bit of work to be done on this. Not much, but we're nearly there. Same principle. Line them up. The panels are made. They need a bit of cleaning here and there, but they've made. And the joint is very important. You know, it would be silly to do all that work thinking that it's right, then you weld it and you said, oh God, I've got to block it out or I've got to shrink it. Well, if you do that, you're going to upset the two ends. So it pays to get them right. I'm going to go to the back and show you a perfect fit. I haven't cut it yet, but it's a perfect fit. Just come around here. This hasn't been cut yet, but you can see what's going to happen here. I'll cut it and that'll go in nicely. Don't forget that it's all over the top, 1.6 over the top. Size here, that'll come nicely, that'll come nicely. Then of course we've got this panel here. That'll also be a nice fit. Same thing, get it perfect and then weld it in so there's very minimal work through here. Okay, now that we've gone through the matching and checking and wheeling, we're going to go back in the front panel from the very beginning, from the pattern, and I'm going to show you quickly how I approach the blocking. I thought I'd start backwards so you can see, you can get an idea of what's going on. Now we're going to go to the original blocking and shaping of that front panel. I've got a pattern over there, I've got a little bit of a blank. I'm going to mark a few things and start blocking it so you can see how you do that. Okay, let's do it. Okay, here we got the pattern that we made from the buck. I've got some drawing there and I'll explain what they are. Okay, so let me show you some of these lines which you're probably familiar with from the panel that we made before. This is the wide area. Let's call that the wide area, the one that hugs around the back panel. I'm sorry, the cap, the two caps. This is the area that needs to be reasonably straight and reasonably round. Not too much, not as much as that, remember? Now this part here is the actual radius, and I'll show you on another piece that I've made up. That's this area here that you must block, as I mentioned before, prior to take it around. If you remember, once the panel comes up, and I think I got a sample, just let me go and get it. Okay, this is the piece that I cut out originally from the panel, and that's, I don't throw it away, it helps me. So you can see here, like so, exactly what's happening. Okay, now this area here, which is that, is where we're going to eventually going to have the panel like that. Measure, I block it, remember, I block it on that area, right there, which is there, and then I'm going to anneal it and bring it down. You should know by now what I'm talking about. There's your panel there. The first thing I'm going to do, and this has come with the experience of course, you can leave that blank and start blocking. The chances are that it'll hollow out right there. And then of course, if it hollows out, it's hard to trying to get it, and you're going to try to wheel every which way to get it, and you're possibly wheeling the wrong way. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to put a little bit of shape right there, just there, knowing very well that that's going to suck it in, but at least it brings me back to flat, not with a hollow, and that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so the first thing you need to do, as I mentioned many times before, I am not going to go into the wheel and just literally wheel up. Trust me, you don't want that. Remember, as that curl, you can't tell how much shape it is, and I just go through that once more just to make sure that you understand what I'm talking about. Okay, so Just watch the matter that I'm wheeling this panel. I'll show you I've got a sharper wheel, by the way, to put a bit of shape quickly so you can see what I'm talking about. So if you squeeze too hard, it's got quite a bit of pressure there. I'm going to put some panel, and as you can see the panel start to, roll into a barrel. Now if you keep going like so, and again this is an exaggeration, but it'll make you understand what I'm trying to say when I say keep it the way that the panel is supposed to be on the car. I'm going to smooth this off a little bit so it doesn't look silly, but again I'm going to do the wrong thing, shall we say. Okay, apart from all the lines you're going to get and on and on and on and on, I'll show you something. There's the panel turned into a barrel, and unless you have to make it that shape, but let's presume that you're making that panel that I'm about to do, and you hold it like that. See all that shape there? Okay, now you keep wheeling that way, and the panel will barrel out. Have a look. The shape is gone. What that means is, that I mentioned before, is when the panel goes back the way that it should, and I'm going to stand on it and show you, I'm going to put it on the floor and stand on it the way that it should. So if I stand on that and straighten it, look at the shape going back in. It's too much, I know. I went silly with the wheel, but that's the principle of it. So you need to wheel the way that the panel is on the car. Pull it down a little bit, but hold it the way, forget the pressure. Hold it the way that it should be held. Okay? Okay, so what I've done here, I just put it on the ground and just gave it a little bit of a bend. Not too much, just a little bit, as you can see. And that would help the panel on the wheel and stop from doing this. See, it's nice and stiff. So, what we're going to do, as I mentioned, we're going to put a little bit of shape here, because when I start blocking here, that's going to hollow out. You don't want that. So, let's put the panel in there. Get in the middle there. Just a little bit. Again, little pressure. Try to be even and try to run them in, like a little bit long. Okay? Not too much. Don't go too silly. All the way down. And if I think that it's going too far, I'm going to hold it and just, okay, like so. Okay, very slowly does it. Just come back in. It doesn't matter at this point how you go. Just put a little bit of shape there, because I'm telling you, that's going to hollow out like there's no tomorrow. And then you'll be chasing it because you're into a, I got a little bit of a lump there, and I'll show you. I'll show you that. Can you see that? Now I'm going to put a little bit of sharper wheel in there and try to draw some of that fullness out, just to be on the safe side. And I'm going to concentrate on this area. Just a little bit, little bit at a time. Easy does it, don't go mental. Just there. Too much. Okay, same thing there, following that line. See that? And do it in that fashion. And I'll come in. See, I don't stop at the same point. I come in And I turn her around and do the same thing. But I'm holding this panel the way I wanted to hold it. Okay, just like that. And I'm coming out. This is just a safe precaution to make sure, and I eyeball it, and as you can see, it is already taking some of that out, which is what I want. All right, now we're going on to the blocking. We need to block it because it needs to come over, and it needs to be round up the top only. Remember, it's much more rounded here and wider down here. Okay, so let's go do some blocking.